What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to give you the blueprint on how to win 3 championships in 3 years in MLB Fantasy. So we are going to go over my draft strategy, my keys to success during the season, and finally my draft board for this year. So I have 2 fantasy baseball teams that I've been running for the past 3 years. I think one I started first year, and then I joined the second league in my second year of fantasy baseball. In 3 years of playing, I've already won 3 championships. So I feel like I'm pretty good at it. So we are going to go through my strategy and how I was able to win those championships, and see if you guys can do the same in your leagues this year. So let's get right to it. All right. So first of all, I can show you guys these are the 2 leagues I've been in the past 3 years. This is the one that I started 3 years ago. This is one I started 2 years ago. This league I won last year. This league I got in second. We're going to be most looking at this league and the categories in this league and how to draft for this league in this video, because I feel like there are a bunch of different scoring options for MLB Fantasy, but I think the way that this league does it is the best way to do it, even though I do like the other league. I'll be basing my strategy off of this league scoring, which I feel like is pretty basic for the most part, other than a couple things that are a little different. So as you can see, these are the roster positions that we have on each of our teams. We have 1 catcher, 1 first base, 1 second base, 1 third base, 1 shortstop, 1 infield position where you can put any one of these in there. Left field, center field, right field, and a regular outfield position where you can put any of these 3 in there. And you got 4 starting pitchers, 4 relief pitchers, which in this league doesn't really matter, which I don't really like, but it kind of can work out to your favor as far as draft strategy. 5 bench spots, 5 IL spots, and 5 NA spots, which NA spots, if you're new to fantasy baseball, that is for prospects or people that are maternity leave. Sometimes you can throw them on there. It's mainly used for prospects. So now that you see what positions we use in this league that I'm going to be basing everything off of this video, I do recognize that other leagues are different, but I'm going to be going off of my categories and players and positions, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to show you how this league is scored. So let's move on to that. Okay, so now that you guys know what positions are used in this league, a little key thing is there is no DH. So in this league, we only have Shohei as a pitcher. We do not have him as a hitter, which I don't really like, because he's such a prolific hitter and such a big part of baseball. I don't like that really at all. But that's just how we do it in this league. So, I mean, if you want to discredit this league in any way because of that reason, I don't blame you. I know that's a pretty big thing, not having Shohei as a hitter in this league. But it's only one player that really affects, obviously. But anyways, we're going to get into the categories that we use to determine the matchups each week in this league. So in this league, we had 25 weeks, including the championship matchup, which this is the championship that happened this past year with my buddy Andrew. I ended up taking the win. Like I said, I won in this league, and this is back-to-back for this league, hoping for the three-peat this upcoming year. But anyway, so we'll go through the categories that this league is determined with. This league has 17 categories that we go by, and each category that you win, you get a point. If you tie a category, neither team gets a point, so it's just nothing. And then if neither team gets any points for that category, it's just nothing as well. So first, pretty standard, we got runs, we got hits, home runs, RBIs. So that's the basic ones for hitting. And then move on a little bit, we got stolen bases, walks, average for your whole team, extra base hits. So this league we just do extra base hits. We used to count doubles and triples differently, but just extra base hits now. So I'm sorry, I actually said that we had 17 categories. We have 16 categories because innings pitched is not a category that you win or lose. It's just a category to track how many innings pitched you have that week. Because for this league, we need to have 40 innings pitched per week for the categories, for pitching categories to count. So say you don't get 40 innings pitched, if I get 38 innings pitched, I'd lose out on every single pitching category. So he would get the points for every single pitching category, no matter what his stats were. Going on to the pitching categories, with that being said, we have wins for pitchers, we have losses, which is a little controversial category as far as losses, because it doesn't always depend on the pitcher, obviously. It can depend on how bad the team does. You know, if Jacob deGrom pitches eight innings scoreless, or 8 innings, he gives up 1 run, and, you know, he has 14 strikeouts, but his team still loses because they couldn't get a hit. You know, that sort of situation where it kind of sucks. But it also makes you kind of look at what team your pitcher plays for, and if they're going to be getting a lot of wins or losses, etc. And then we got complete games, so that doesn't happen all the time, obviously. So like this week, no one got the point for that category. We got walks for pitchers. So obviously the less amount of walks, if you get less walks than your opponent, you get the point. The same kind of concept goes for losses. You get less losses, you get the point. Strikeouts, ERA, whip, and quality starts. So those are the 16 categories that this league goes off of that I'm going to be basing my draft strategy, keys to success, and draft board on. So I just want to show you guys that. And now let's get on to my draft strategy for this year and every year. All right, so now we're going to get into my draft strategy for the past 3 years for fantasy baseball. My first year might have not been as on point as the past 2, but we're going to go through what I think is the best strategy to draft the best team in MLB Fantasy. So I have a little list here that I'm going to go through. First of all, this one might be, I feel like a decent amount of my bullet points might be controversial, so I'm not going to keep saying that. But first one I got here is ignore positions. Pick best available. There are a lot of good hitters in this league, especially in outfield. So I understand that outfield positions can be stocked up and you can create a logjam because there's so many good hitters and 5-tool players in outfield. But ignore positions as best you can. Pick the best available. It'll turn out good for you in the end. You'll figure out the positions at some point. You can add people, you can do trades, you can do whatever. Just ignore positions as best you can. The next thing, we have no pitchers in the first and second round draft. This one I think could definitely especially be controversial because there are some obviously very top pitchers in the league that are going to be dominant and going to be really good. But I think in the past 3 years I haven't picked a pitcher in the first or second round once. I know the past 2 years I haven't. The first year I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure I have not. I think pitchers it's a lot about matchups. There's obviously really dominant pitchers, like I said, like Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, that you can't go wrong with them. They're going to have good years, but there's plenty of pitchers in the league that can get the job done, and as long as they have a good week and win you that matchup that week, that's what you're looking for. And you can still get really good pitchers in third, fourth, fifth. Sometimes I even wait to the fourth round to pick my first pitcher. But I think you could start in the third round. But I think for my strategy so far, first and second round, no pitchers. Third thing, understand that some positions are shallow. The past couple of years, second base and catcher have been the 2 shallow positions, so don't reach. Once the cream of the crop is gone, those top guys are gone. Wait it out as long as you can. It's kind of equated to like tight ends in fantasy football. You got the top of the top, and then once those are gone, it really thins out. So like I said in the first bullet point, ignore positions as much as you can, because you can run into issues where you need a second baseman or a catcher, and you feel like you have to fill the position, but it's really shallow. If the pick's not worth it and it's not best available, just wait, and you'll figure it out. You can pick someone up when the season starts. You can do a trade when you need to. Just don't reach at shallow positions. Fourth, pitching is about matchups. I kind of already talked about this. So you want to kind of pay attention to when you're picking a pitcher, like I said, earliest third round for me, kind of pay attention to what division they're in, who they're going to be facing more often throughout the season. See very dominant pitchers that are going to be good no matter what for the most part, but every pitcher has an off day, and you want to give them the easiest matchups that you can think of. So keep an eye on matchups and what divisions they're in, and that'll help a lot throughout the season, make your decisions easier throughout the season. You got a pitcher that already has easier matchups in their division. You can play them every day, every time they pitch, and not have to worry about it because they don't have as tough of players to have to go up against. Like, say, the NL West is going to be tough this year. There's really good teams. Obviously, the Rockies are down there, but you got some good pitchers in that division that are probably going to perform no matter what, but there are also some very good hitters in that division, obviously. So next up on the list, we have a plan for your picks. So like I don't know what pick I'm gonna have in either of my drafts yet. But when I do, I will quickly start looking at what the options will be at that pick and what the options will be at my second round pick. And this is a little easier to do when you're in the draft. You know who you're gonna get. Say I'm picking seventh. I know, I'll watch what picks go by. I'll see who's available at 7, and then I'm gonna look through the guys that I want to pick. I'm gonna before I even submit the pick, I want to be like, okay, I'm gonna take him, and then I'm gonna hope that I'm going to take him because I think he's going to be there next round. Or I'm going to take him because I don't think he's going to be there next round and I really want him. I think he's having a big year. And for who you're going to pick. At least the next 2 picks at every pick. So you're picking 7. You're going to pick again in a couple picks in the second round. Try to have an idea who you're going to take in those 2 picks. And then once you get to the next pick, you think about 3rd round, 4th round, just so on and so forth. You want to have a good plan and backup plans too, because people can get taken that you want. You don't want to be rushing and panicking during the draft. That's never good. Okay. Next is don't be afraid to stock on outfield positions. I kind of talked about this already a little bit for the positions when I said ignore positions, because outfield is pretty stocked up with very good hitters. There's a good amount of 5-tool players out there that are important for leagues, for category leagues. You're trying to get stolen bases. Extra base hits. You want guys that can really hit and have speed. So don't be afraid to stock up on outfielders. You can always, if you have a log jam during the season, you can always make trades to get positions that you're not as high on. Most leagues have at least 4 outfield positions, so you got 4 there, and then it's always good if you have a really good player that has to sit on your bench sometimes, then so be it. At least you have options, and like I said, those kind of options can turn into trades at some point in the season. I just know that, outfielders, very good hitters, they're hard to pass up on. If they're best available at your pick, don't pass up on them. Take them. All right, next up is keep an eye on Japanese rookies. It seems like every year these guys end up having good years, and some people in your leagues might be more of a casual when it comes to watching. I don't want to say there's a lot of casuals in MLB fantasy leagues, but there could be some people that are doing the league just because they like MLB generally, but they really only follow their team. They don't follow a ton around the league. I could be totally off on this, but what I'm trying to say is they might not really know these Japanese players. It's happened the past couple of years. Last year I got Shota Imanaga very late in the draft. That was obviously a big steal. The year before that, I got Kodai Senga and Seiya Suzuki pretty late. I got Jung-Hoo Lee last year, which he was doing decent. I got him very late last year. He was doing decent before he got hurt. And then this year, Roki Sasaki and Hae-Seong Kim from the Dodgers. I think they'll be good. Yamamoto last year was good. He was a little more highly touted, so he was picked a little earlier in leagues. I think Roki Sasaki will be the same this year, but we'll see. Japanese rookies seem to have good years, good rookie years, and they seem to fall late in drafts. So keep an eye on them and try to steal them late if you can. All right, on to the next. Ignore apps rankings. I'm using Yahoo. I don't know what app you're using for your fantasy draft, but I'm using Yahoo. Some players in my rankings that I've already looked at are ranked way too low. For example, off the top of my head, I think Fernando Tatis is ranked way too low. If he's healthy, he's a stud. I even think like Bryce Harper's ranked a little too low. Corey Seager, if he's healthy, he's ranked kind of low. There's just some guys that are ranked really high that are like, there's no way I'd pick them top 15 or something. So just try your best to ignore the rankings and pick the best available that you think is going to be best available. Don't worry about the rankings. It's hard to ignore. It's hard to ignore in any fantasy sport, but just try your best to ignore it. All right, next up, trust in players that are known producers. This happens every year, it seems like, in my leagues, where guys that are just good hitters, good players, they fall to the late in drafts, and you can get steals on them. And another thing that especially happens is during the season, if you get a proven player that just has a slow start to the season, they're just not playing good, be patient with them. You know, guys that are proven hitters, proven pitchers in this league, sometimes they can go through slumps, and you know that if they wake it up, they could wake it up in a big way. So just try to be patient with them, especially early in the season. You don't want to have that happen where you drop someone and they end up going off. It's a terrible feeling. It's happened to me a couple times. It's happened to a couple of my friends in my leagues, where they've dropped players way too early. Just don't give up on proven players. They could always turn it around. And then, kind of going off what I said earlier, look for 5-tool players. In this league, like I said, when I showed the categories, we have stolen bases, home runs, extra base hits, walks. You want guys that are going to be filling up the stat sheet as often as possible. So that's why that guys like Bobby Witt, Gunnar Henderson, Elliot Cruz, they're at the top of the list as far as draft boards. As far as my draft board, they are, which you guys will see later in the video. So as far as draft strategy goes, I think that's about it. So now we can move on to keys to success in the season. First bullet point is be relentless on the waiver wire and free agency. Always be I almost check this every single day when I'm in the season, because we have games every single day. Just keep looking for trends, guys that are playing good. Jump on them early if you can. If you really see they have good, if it's a pitcher, see what matchups they got next, and see, oh, this guy's going to be pitching against the A's in 5 days. Maybe I just pick him up now and just have him now so I don't miss out on him or someone jumps on him before I do. Another thing, like I said about the proven players, if someone drops a guy that has been good in the league notoriously, don't be afraid to pick him up if you can, if you're available, if you have spots for him, or if you have someone that you think you can give up. Jump on that opportunity. These guys that are good proven hitters, proven pitchers in this league, they can turn it around. They've been around the block. They'll figure it out at some point, especially early in the season. Some people give up on them. If you have the chance and have the space in your team, then go for it. Next on the bullet list here, don't do any trades in the first month or so if you can help it. I know people get impatient, but try not to, especially with guys that were high round picks, or I keep saying this, but proven players, proven pitchers. Especially with those guys, you don't want to get bit in the ass because you traded a guy that was highly touted or borderline superstar in the league, and then he turns it around and goes off for the other team. Just especially in the first month or so, just try your best not to. If someone comes to you with a trade and it seems like, oh, I'm getting this borderline superstar that was drafted high because this guy wants to just ship him off now and is getting impatient, then really weigh it out, but just play it safe as far as trades in the first month or so, because it can go way in your favor or way out of your favor. So just be careful doing trades that early. It goes the same with dropping players that early. It can really come back to bite you in the ass. Next up is take the 2 minutes to set your lineup every day. It's not hard. Just take the time to do it. As your day starts and you're able to get on your phone real quick, on your laptop, on your computer, set your lineup, it takes 2 minutes. It does not take long. I know MLB fantasy is a grueling season because it's very long. It's every day. You have to be on top of it. But if you want to win a championship, if you're in a money league, or if you're just in a random league that you just want to win, take the time to set your lineup, because if you don't and you miss out on a pitching matchup that you forgot to put in your lineup and he starts on your bench and you don't get any of those stats, and they have a 12K 8 innings pitch game and you don't get any of that could be the difference between whether you win the week or don't win the week. So it doesn't take long. Take 2 minutes to set your lineup. I know it's a long season, but just take the time to do it. All right, next on the list is always be looking to make your team better. Like I said, other than try to disregard the first month as far as trades, but always be looking to buy low and sell high with players in your team, because there's some players that they'll go through streaks where they're very good and then they either get hurt or they get go into a slump all of a sudden, just are not good. Like last year, for example, I had Ha-Seong Kim. He started off the season great, was going off, and I ended up, and even Framber Valdez was the same thing. Well, Framber ended up having a good year all the way through, but then he had some slumps, areas where he wasn't as good. But I was able to package Ha-Seong Kim, Bo Bichette, and Framber Valdez for Jose Ramirez early in the season, and looking back at it, I probably robbed the guy. For sure did. But that's what happens when you can run into people that want to sell or buy, or buy low on someone or sell high. In my case, selling high there for selling Ha-Seong Kim and the other two. I mean, Bo Bichette didn't do anything last year. But always be looking to make your team better. Like I said, waiver wire, free agency, trades. Look for the best possible deals to make your team better. Be relentless when it comes to this too, and don't be afraid if you're in a league that uses like FAAB, like use like money to auction players and waiver wire. Don't be afraid to use $30, $20 of it to get someone in free agency. You're most likely not going to use all of that during the season, anyways. I usually am always left over with at least 20, so don't be afraid to use it. Don't use it all at once, but don't be afraid to use it to pick up players. So that's the keys to success for this season. We're going to go backtrack a little bit and go back to a little bit with the draft strategy stuff and show you guys how my draft results happened the past 2 years and to show you how my teams ended up at the end of the years. So let's get into that. Okay, so this was my team last year. This was the draft that I ended up going with, the 8th pick. So we started off with Fernando Tatis. I think I passed up on Juan Soto for this pick. So looking back at it, Juan Soto would have been the better pick, but I ended up still winning the championship. So it worked out. That's always going to happen though. When you pass on, especially in the first round, they're all going to be good for the most part unless they get hurt. So it happens, but I'm with Yordan Alvarez. Bo Bichette had a horrible season, so this ended up being a bad pick. He was hurt for a good amount of it too, though. But then going back to it, as you can see the trend here, this is 3 hitters in a row. Now these are all 3, or these 2 are outfield, and then we got an infield here. Then we start with the pitchers. So Zach Gallen was coming off that insane year the year before. So I went with him as my first pitcher in the 4th round. He ended up having a good year. It was a down year, though, compared to his year prior to that. Then we went with Framber. So these are my first 2 pitchers I took. And then, as you can see, I go with 3 more hitters before I pick another pitcher. And I got Chris Sale in the 9th round. So stuff like this is what can happen. This is what I'm talking about. This is a proven player that was coming off of injury, that just came back and had a phenomenal year. Obviously, he won Cy Young. So he carried my pitching staff, and I got him in the 9th round. So you can wait on pitchers. You can find gems like this late in rounds that people think, oh, he's washed, or oh, he's not gonna have a good year. He's older, whatever. Especially pitchers, they can age pretty well sometimes. So, and Chris Sale had an awesome year. He carried my pitching staff, like I said, and I got him in the 9th round. That's an absolute steal. With Yandy Diaz, a couple more pitchers. Luis Ariz, even in the 12th round. I thought that was a steal. He doesn't hit for much power, but that's a good proven hitter that's going to hit over 300 and get you a lot of hits, help your average category. He's even going to get a good amount of extra base hits, even if it's not home runs. He'll get you a lot of doubles, gets on base, gets you runs. That's another good example of a late round steal. People are passing up on that. He's just a good pure hitter, and you need guys on that in your team to boost your average, to boost your hits, stuff like that. Tristan McKenzie, he didn't end up doing good. I ended up dropping him, I think. He's been a good pitcher in this league, but last year he was not. And then here comes the Japanese players, Shota Imanaga. Great year last year, obviously almost won Cy Young. This was an absolute steal in the 14th round. This is what I'm talking about. These Japanese players that, they've been playing in the pros for a while, and they just, they come over to the MLB. they're technically rookies, but they're basically, you know, some of them have been playing for a long time. So keep an eye on guys like this. You can get them late in rounds. People don't really know about some of them. 14th round for him. He's another guy who carried my pitching staff. Masataka Yoshida, another Japanese player that I like. Last year he did not have that great of a year. I ended up dropping him. He had a couple hot spurts though where he played good, where other people were able to pick him up. So sometimes that's just how it goes. It doesn't always work out, but I really am a big fan of Japanese players. I think they're good hitters and pitchers. Next up, we had Nathan Eovaldi. This is another pitcher that I took. So at this point, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitchers. So this is kind of rounding out my staff. Nathan Eovaldi. And then we went Matt Chapman, which this is an example I wanted to bring up because Matt Chapman ended up having a good year last year, and I gave up on him way too early. And I think it was like 2 months into the season. Like, it wasn't really early, but I dropped him, and I really regretted that because he ended up having a stretch where he was just unbelievable. So that really stung. So, you know, watch out for that. That's an example right there of a time where I even messed up and made a decision that ended up not being good for me. But I ended up still winning the championship, like I said, so it worked out. But Jung-Hoo Lee, here's another Japanese player that I took. Like I said, he was playing good until he got hurt. And then, you know, it rounds out the draft here. Max Scherzer was hurt. He wasn't starting the season. But this is a good late round pick to kind of stash in your bench until he gets healthy. So that was my draft last year. We had some players that were really good. William Contreras, Brian Reynolds. The hitters were pretty good, even with having a third round pick that was not good. So let's go on and see what my team looked like at the end of the season. So this is what I finished my team as. So now, you know, it's one thing to consider here is that some of these players I picked up like literally in the last week to try to get any sort of extra hitting stats that I could get. So this was that last week where the Braves and the Mets played a couple late games. So I picked up a bunch of Braves and Mets players to try to win categories. So that's why some of the, like, I would usually never pick up, you know, like Tyrone Taylor and Gio Urshela. They're not worth it, but I was trying to get any categories that I could get. But a couple players that I picked up that ended up working out really well for me last year. Mark Vientos was a good one. Brent Rooker I picked up. He was phenomenal. Bryce Terang I picked up. He was great. Got me stolen bases. Lawrence Butler was amazing. Jose Ramirez, the guy I traded for. That was obviously, I talked about that already. That was a really good trade for me. Paul Goldschmidt I traded for. Which this is actually an example of a trade that did not work out well for me, where I gave up on a player too early. I traded a couple picks and Jackson Merrill for a couple picks and Paul Goldschmidt, and I think a pitcher or something. That obviously did not work out. Jackson Merrill ended up having an insane season. Like, literally just right after I traded him, he started going off. That was another big regret. So I had 2 regrets in this season with Jackson Merrill and... what was the other one? Oh, Matt Chapman. That did not work out. That really were not good for me. But I made up for it with able to trade for Jose Ramirez, pick up Lawrence Butler, pick up Bryce Terang, pick up Brent Rooker, pick up Mark Vientos. You know, so you can make up for it. Even if you make a trade, don't give up. Keep looking to make your team better as much as you possibly can. So we go to our pitching staff. I picked up, obviously, some of these guys. Jackson Jobe. I picked up, and then some of these guys, I mean, Bryce Miller. I think Bryce Miller was another guy that was in that trade for Paul Goldschmidt. And then, you know, we had Chris Sale, Zach Gallen, Shota Imanaga. Robbie Ray was a guy I was trying to stash. I think towards the end of the season, I dropped some of my pitchers to make room for hitters. Because, I mean, you can see here, Jordan Alvarez is not on my team because I dropped him to try to make room for more hitters to win the league. So, you know, don't be afraid to do that at the end of the season to do anything it takes to win the league in the very last week. Drop whoever you need to pick up players. And then going back, I don't think I brought this up earlier. One thing that I don't love about this league, but I mean, I'm okay with it at this point because it's been a couple years, is that relief pitchers mean absolutely nothing. As you can see here, we have 4 relief pitching spots. I don't have anyone for them because we don't have a category that does anything for relief pitchers. I mean, obviously you can get Ks with them. Sometimes you can get lucky and get some wins. They can help your ERA, you can help your WHIP, but we don't have like a saves category or a holds category in this league, which most people probably think that's stupid. I disagree with you. I think they should have some sort of category so that they matter, but we don't, so they don't really get, and people still draft some relief pitchers because some of them are dominant. You can still get pitching categories done with them technically, but nothing that, like, you'd rather just have more starting pitchers to choose from instead of having random relief pitchers in here that they can get lit up and mess up your ERA or WHIP on some days, or walks, whatever, on some days. They're not always dominant. And that's one thing to look for going back on that. Some pitchers get listed as starting pitcher, comma, relief pitcher, so you could put them in like these relief pitching spots and they'll still, obviously, and they can still start, and because you only have 4 starting pitcher spots in this league at least. So, you can only start 4 starting pitchers, but if you have 5 and one of them is a relief pitcher / starting pitcher, you can still put them in here and start 5 pitchers that day. So that's something to look for as well. I know like Jordan Hicks last year, Michael King was like that for a little bit, that were starting pitchers. So that's another thing to look for to try to maximize the amount of starting pitchers you can have in your lineup. So this is what the team ended up looking like. There's a lot of changes that go on throughout the season to make your team look different. I mean, I probably made over 100 different transactions as far as adding people and dropping people. I was always on the waiver wire, and that's what got me my championship. So we can move on to the league that, we'll do this a little bit quicker, but there was something I wanted to highlight in this league that I did 2 years ago that was kind of crazy to me. So this was the league that I did 2 years ago, and I won this league as well. This was the same league that I just showed, this was 2 years ago instead of last year. So another thing to see is that I picked 2 hitters, and I didn't pick a pitcher till the 3rd and 4th round. I went back-to-back pitchers, DeGrom and Fried, but I didn't go with them until the 3rd round. So there's not much else to show for this draft. Just kind of go with the same strategy like I've been saying. Just wanted to show this real quick and notice that Tarek Skubal is not anywhere on this draft board, as you can see. I did not pick him at any pick. So let's go to what my team looked like at the end of the season. All right, let's move this over a little bit. So we had William Contreras. Just to highlight a few, we had Michael Harris, we had Escher Rees, Kerry Carpenter. Let's see here. And here's the big one, Tarek Skubal. Now notice that I did not draft him. And I would love to tell you that I traded for him, but I did not. I picked him up. Believe it or not, I picked him up. Now, this was 2 years ago. He was not as prolific and dominant as he was last year, but it still goes to show, he still ended up having a great year this year. It goes to show that you can pick up guys that are just going to be absolutely dominant. And this goes back to not picking pitchers in the 1st, 2nd round. You can pick up very serviceable pitchers in late rounds or on the waiver wire that can get the job done. Now, Tarek Skubal got more than just the job done. You're not always going to get guys like this. I'm not saying this happens all the time, but just understand that you can figure out during the season what works best as far as your pitching. This goes for pitching, hitters, whatever. Just put in the time to pick up people on the waiver wire, free agency, and always look to make your team better through trades. Buy low, sell high. And just to show you, this was, I think it might have been right after the draft ended. So this is March 29th, around 10 o'clock, 2 years ago. Picked up Tarek Skubal this might have been right after the draft. I don't know. That's one thing that I look for as soon as the draft is ended, is to since I have those 5 NA spots and 5 IL spots, if you got some starting pitchers, hitters, whatever, that are starting the year on IL or hurt, or prospects that you want to stash throughout the year and see if they'll get brought up. Like this year, I picked up Jackson Holliday right after the draft too, just in case he got brought up at some point. I don't think he ever did that year. But just as soon as the draft ends, go and look and see who's NA and pick him up. Pick as many good ones as you can up. Pick as many good IL players as you can up and stash them on your bench. They will come in handy at some point during the season. Tarek Skubal might have started the season injured. Maybe that's what the case was. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I'm a Tigers fan. I still don't remember. But at any rate, I picked him up, and he ended up being a dominant part of my rotation. So that's the big thing with that. So now we can get to my draft board for this year. Here's another thing too, just to show you guys, to prove. This was last year, so I got second in this league. And then the categories that we were basing this video off of is dead ball league. So I got back-to-back 2024, got first, and 23 I got first in those leagues. And then I got first in this other league, not this past year, but the year before. And then in dead ball league, my first year, I got second. So I got runner-up, and I almost went 3 times in a row. Just want to show that real quick. Okay, so now we're going to get into my personal draft board. Now, as the time this video is, it's February 25th, 2025. This is what I have right at this second. It might change, but I think this is pretty solid. To start off at number 1, not a difficult choice for me, Bobby Witt Jr. He's going to be on the top of my draft board. His stats last year, and I don't expect him to slow down this year. So last year, 211 hits, 32 homers, over 100 RBIs, 31 stolen bases. I even think his stolen bases could get an uptick again this year. He had 49 the year before, 332 last year. That's crazy, 88 extra base hits. I mean, this is easy for me. He's number 1 on my draft board. Second on my draft board, it is not Aaron Judge, it is not Jose Ramirez, it is not Elliot Cruz, it is Gunnar Henderson. Now, he ended up having a slow finish last year. But I think as he keeps getting more time in the league, he's just going to get better and better. He still had an insane year, 37 homers, 92 RBIs, 177 hits, 21 stolen bases. So it's another 5-tool player. He's going to get you steals. He's going to get you walks. He's going to get you extra base hits, homers. He's got a decent average. He's going to get your runs, over 100 runs. So this guy is going to be 2 on my list at shortstop. So we got 2 shortstops to start out. Third on my list is going to be Juan Soto. I gotta go down the list here. This is what I'm talking about. The rankings in Yahoo or any league, whatever league you're using. Disregard who cares. Go with who you think is the best. And this is as far as picking in your fantasy baseball league. So last year, I know he played in Yankee Stadium, so his homers could take a little bit of a dip. But I don't expect it to get that much of a dip if it does. 41 homers, 109 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, not much there. But 129 walks, he's going to get you in that category. 288 average, I think is going to take a bump. He's usually a 300 hitter, so I think that could go up. 76 extra base hits, 166 hits, 128 runs. I think in that Mets offense with Lindor and Pete Alonso around him, he's going to get on base. He's going to get drove in a lot. And he's just going to flat out hit. So Juan Soto is the third on my list. He's obviously an outfielder. So first outfielder off the list. And then fourth on my list is Jose Ramirez. Now I have, like I said, and he was insane. 173 hits. 39 homers, almost had 40 homers and 40 stolen bases. 118 RBIs, absolutely just raked them in. 54 walks, not that high. 280 average, that's gonna get the job done, and 80 extra base hits. That's a lot of extra base hits. He's gonna get you runs. That Cleveland Guardians offense is still a good lineup, even though they lost a couple guys with Andre Jimenez leaving. I think they lost Josh Naylor too, actually. But I still expect them to have a good lineup and still expect him to have a very good season. So he is fourth on my list. Fifth on my draft board is Aaron Judge. Now, I know everyone will probably have him. I have him. I don't know, for some reason I've never been a huge Judge guy, but I really should be. I mean, he had 180 hits, 58 homers, 144 RBIs. He's not going to get you the stolen bases. He'll get you the walks, though. He gets a lot of intentional walks, obviously. 322 average. I mean, he had an unbelievable year. 95 extra base hits. He had an unbelievable year, a bunch of runs. I expect with Juan Soto out of the lineup, though, I know they're still getting Cody Bellinger. They got Goldie coming in. I still expect him to have a great year, but I just don't see him hitting 55-plus home runs again. So I think as far as that goes, he'll have a down year, but 50 home run, even if he hits 50, that's a down year for Judge, but that's not a down year for most people. So you can't go wrong with him, but I don't have him above the other four that I have so far. I think the other four are better 5-tool players other than Soto. He doesn't do as much stealing of bases. They're around, him and Judge are on the same, but I think he hits for better average, and I think he'll have a better year in that Mets system. So that's why I have Aaron Judge at number 5 on my draft board. All right, number 6 on my draft board is Elly De La Cruz. Another very good example of a 5-tool player. He's gonna hit you home runs. He's gonna get stolen bases. He's gonna get you extra base hits. I think the RBIs could have a little bit of an uptick. I'm not sure how the acquisitions were for the Reds in the offseason, so I'd have to look into that a little bit as far as who's around him. But he's going to get on base. He's going to get your runs. He's going to get your stolen bases. Stolen bases is a big category, and there's not many people in the league that are going to be stealing bases as much as he is. 67 is unbelievable. That will win you the category every week, damn near. If he's stealing 4 a week, even, you've got other guys in your team that can still steal, but he's going to do a lot of that load for you. I expect the home runs to have an uptick as he gets used to MLB pitching, used to the league. I expect him to be a better hitter. I know he's a little bit of a wild hitter, strikes out a lot, but I expect him to have an even bigger year than he had last year. That's why he's number 6 on my list. Number 7 on my draft board is Mookie Betts. Mookie is Mookie, and there's not much to say here. He's getting older, I know, but 130 hits last year compared to the year before. He had a little bit of a down year. He was hurt for a good amount of the year, though, and when he came back, he was pretty good. He's going to get you some steals. He should get you at least 20 home runs. Like I said, he was hurt last year, so that hurt him a little bit as far as the numbers here compared to the year before. He's going to hit for good average, get you extra base hits. There's not much to say here. He's Mookie. He's going to get you some steals, too. He's got some speed, so Mookie's Mookie. Another good thing with him, too, is if his eligibility stays like this, where you can play him at second, short, or right field, that's really good eligibility to have in fantasy baseball, so you have options. So he's not landlocked to one position. You have options as far as where you want to put him. It opens up your lineup a little bit. So we're going to go with number 8 on our draft board now. Going a little bit of an order here. Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker, he was hurt last year, so that hurt his numbers a little bit. But he still hit 289, 80 hits, and only 277 at-bats. 23 home runs in that short amount of time as well is really good. He'll get you some steals, too. He's got some decent speed. And I think being on the Cubs is going to help him a lot. I think that's a better... he's still got to go against Paul Skeens a good amount in the season, but he's a really good hitter. I think he can get to him a little bit. So Paul Skeens will be tough, but at least the one tough pitcher that he'd have to go against in his division is Shota Imanaga, and he's on his team. So, I expect this division to be a little bit easier on him. I know that in his past division he had, the A's to go up against, so that was not a great team. But, the Mariners and the Rangers have good pitching, have had good pitching staffs the past couple of years. So I think the pitching he'll be going against will be a little easier, and I think he'll hit well in Wrigley. So that's why I have Kyle Tucker at number 8 on my draft board. All right, moving on to number 9. This goes against a little bit of my 5-tool rule. This is probably one of my first players Maybe not first player. Aaron Judge doesn't steal a bunch and Juan Soto doesn't steal a bunch. We're just going with a good hitter. So I think Vlad Guerrero, I mean, when I first thought of him in the past couple days when I was thinking about my draft board, I was like, I thought he had a down year last year compared to past years. Like, he was kind of quiet, but no, I mean, he was not quiet. 199 hits, 30 homers, 103 RBIs. He's not going to get you steals. Don't even say anything about that. He'll get you some walks. 323 average is very good, obviously. 75 extra base hits, almost 100 runs. I mean, that was a very good year. He played almost every game. You want guys that are going to be available too. And I think that with not getting a contract extension with the Blue Jays, he's going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and feel like he has something to prove. So I expect him to have another monster year. Will he get more than 199 hits? I don't know. That's a tough thing to beat. But if he stays healthy, plays the whole season, I think his home runs is going to move up a good amount. I could see him going for 40 this year, having more of a season like he did 2 years ago, I think, when he almost beat Shohei for MVP when he was going for the Triple Crown. So I think he'd have a season more like that. So that's why he is number 9 on my draft board. Moving on to number 10, we're going to go with Francisco Lindor, which is kind of in order a little bit here again. One guy that I wasn't sure about ranking high. Seemed like, last year he still had a good year. It just seemed like he went through some spurts where he was like, man, he's just really not hitting, and then he just turns it on, turns it off. So I feel like he goes through that, but then he ends up with basically 170 hits, over 100 runs, 33 homers, 56 walks, 29 stolen bases. This is another good 5-tool player. He's going to get your steals and home runs and runs and walks. He's going to do everything for you. And I was a little hesitant because I just didn't feel like he didn't have his crazy year last year, but he ended up having a great year. And I was thinking of putting other people ahead of him when I thought about it. Adding Juan Soto and still bringing back Pete Alonso too to that lineup. Having Juan Soto around him, it's going to help him a lot. Pitchers are going to be worried about that. I think it's going to be kind of just how much it helped Aaron Judge last year with having Juan Soto in the lineup. I think Lindor is going to be great. So you got another shortstop here. We had, Gunnar Henderson, Bobby Witt, Mookie, Lindor. You got 4 shortstops right there, if I'm not missing one. And Ellie De La Cruz, actually, too, so there's 5. Another shortstop, but I think he's going to have a great year and ignore positions. If you're able to get 2 of those guys, I just said in some ways, shape or some way in hell, then go for it. Who cares about positions? You'll get it figured out. If you have an extra infield position, there you go, or whatever. It'll get figured out because this guy's going to be good with Juan Soto in the lineup. All right, we're going to go to number 11 now on the list, and that is Jarren Duran. I think is an underrated player that had a really, really, really good year last year. It kind of flew under the radar a little bit because I feel like it did at least, because 191 hits, 21 home runs, 75 RBIs, 34 stolen bases, another 5-tool player. Outfield this time. He's going to hit your home runs. He's going to get your stolen bases. He's going to just absolutely hit the ball. Going to get your runs. He's got that average up there. 83 extra base hits with only 21 home runs is really good. So if you have a league that tracks triples, this would be a perfect player. And I think with adding Alex Bregman to that lineup and still having Rafael Devers, guys like that. I'm trying to think who else is on it. Tristan Casas, Masataka Yoshida. There's good hitters in that lineup. That's going to be a potent lineup, and I think he's going to lead off and just be a very good hitter for this lineup. That's going to flat out hit, get you runs. You got Bregman that can drive him in now. Home runs and stolen bases. And 191 hits is crazy, so I think he's going to be a very good player this year, and that is why he is number 11 on my draft board. We are going to go to number 12 now. We're going to go up a little bit. Fernando Tatis. Now, normally I'd like to have him a little bit higher, and I probably could because I'm a big Tatis fan. But he was hurt last year, so it's hard to say he had a down year. He still had 276 when when he came back from injury, he was a great hitter. Went on a really good run at some point in the season when he came back. Only 21 home runs. Past 2 years, only in the 20s for home runs. I expect that to go up this year. I think if he's healthy, he's going to hit at least 35. I could see him having a monster year. It just depends on if he stays healthy. So if he can, and he's going to get your stolen bases too. He didn't do as much last year. I think he still had some problems with his legs. That was limiting the stolen bases, but I think that can go up too. I think you expect an uptick in stolen bases and home runs, and have a lot more hits than just 110. So I expect him to have kind of a bounce back year if he stays healthy, and that is why he's number 12 on my list. We got an outfielder here with this pick, and then we're going to move on to 13, which is one of his teammates. It's no reason why. Maybe, ignore Yahoo rankings because there can be good guys ranked low. Next one. This was a guy last year that he had an insane rookie year. I think he could have won Rookie of the Year over Paul Skeens. It's hard to pick between those two, though they both had great years. Incredible years at that. But 162 hits in his rookie year, 24 home runs, 90 RBIs, 16 stolen bases. I think that's going to go up this year. 292 average, 61 extra base hits, 77 runs. I think that can go up too, depending on where they put him in the lineup. But I think he is going to have the same or better type of year than this. He is just a dog. I'm a big fan of the Padres. Tigers are my team, but Padres are right there. So I've watched a decent amount of Padres games. He is just a dog. He's a gamer. He just wants to be out there and wants to be competing every day. So he's going to have another good year. I expect to even have a little bit better year than this. Maybe 180 hits. Maybe he gets 30 home runs. I expect stolen bases to get up to the 20s. Another outfielder here, but I expect him to have a big year. Another 5-tool player, up-and-coming superstar here, I think. Jackson Merrill is going to be good. So that's why he's number 13 on my list. Number 14, we got another Jackson Trio. I think him and Jackson Merrill could be interchangeable. They're going to both be good. I think Trio's in a not as tough division as when you compare it to the NL West. The NL Central is definitely easier. But another rookie last year that played very good. He had a couple of slow spurts in the season where he just really wasn't playing well, but then he figured it out. He had 145 hits, 21 homers, 79 RBIs, 22 stolen bases, 275 average. I think as he keeps getting used to MLB pitching, just like Jackson Merrill, all these numbers are going to get boosted. I think at least 25 homers. RBIs probably stay around the same or go up a little bit. Stolen bases, I think this can go to 30 for sure. And average maybe a little bit higher, but really just the home runs, hits, I think go up at least 160, 165, somewhere around there. At least 30 steals, 25 to 30 home runs. I think he's an up-and-coming superstar, 5-tool player that's just going to be good. Another outfielder here, so this goes back to my point of there are a lot of good hitting outfielders. Don't be afraid to take them. You'll figure it out. All right, so that's why he's number 14 on my list. Number 15, we're going to just have to scroll up a little bit here. Julio Rodriguez. Now, this could be a little low, but last year he really had a down year. I feel like you could really feel it last year. He just wasn't on. There were some parts in the season where he really was on, but then really was off. But, he's had 155 hits still, 20 homers, that's low. 68 RBIs is low, 24 stolen bases. Now, I feel like these could go up towards what he had 2 years ago. I think at least 25 home runs. The RBIs need to go up to at least 80. If the Mariners want to be good, he has to do this for sure. Stolen bases, I think, can get to at least 30 for sure. I think he'll figure it out this year and get back to his old ways like he was 2 years ago. Get those hits up, get everything up, really. But another 5-tool player like I was talking about. It's another outfielder. But you want guys that are going to hit for power, get runs, get hits, get on base. get stolen bases for you. Stolen bases is a big category that not every hitter can do, and you want to get as many people that can cover as many categories as you can, and Julio Rodriguez is a good example of it. And I could see him maybe falling a little bit because of his year last year, but we'll see. Next on my list, number 16 is Corey Seager. Let's see where he is on this list. He might have to go to the next 25, yep. So I know I passed on some guys on that list that maybe you wouldn't. This is why you ignore rankings, guys, because Corey, okay, here he is. My bad. Number 16. Now this is a guy that just has had a really hard time staying healthy. I mean, he still had 475 at bats last year, and still, you know, he still hit 30 home runs, 74 RBIs. You know, got on base, the walks, 51 extra base hits. If he can stay healthy, he could be arguably one of the best hitting shortstops in the league. I mean, you can't put him up against Bobby Witt. If you're excluding Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, I think he's right there. I think he's a better hitter than Elly De La Cruz. As far as shortstops goes, he's more consistent. As long as he stays healthy, you know, hits for really good power. Even with being injured, he's able to come back. And in both these years, he was injured, and 30 home runs in both years. So if he can just finally stay healthy, I like Corey Seager a lot to just rake for you. So that's why he's number 16 on my list. Number 17, I have to go back to the first page. Is Yordan Alvarez. Now this might be ranked a little bit low. Last year I had him and he went off. 170 hits, 35 home runs, 86 RBIs. He got some steals for me. I mean, you can't expect to get steals from Yordan, though. 69 walks. He hit for good average, over 300, 71 extra base hits. So he's going to flat out rake for you. He's not 5-tool, but he's going to rake. And like I say, he could be higher on the list, honestly. He's a really good hitter. Just it's hard with this top 20 because there's just so many good options. But this is what I think for my draft board. So everyone's going to be different for sure. But number 18, we're going to go with Bryce Harper. Another guy that could be higher, but also has had trouble staying healthy a little bit the past couple of years. 157 hits last year, 30 homers, 87 RBIs, 7 stolen bases. I think this could, if he stays healthy, I mean, it could go up to over 10. I mean, that's not really going to affect a whole lot, but you don't really need to worry about stolen bases with him, I guess. But 76 walks. I think he could hit 300, 72 extra base hits. So you know what you're going to get with Bryce. He's going to hit. You know, if he stays healthy, he's going to hit. Hit for power and hit for good average. So that's why he's number 18 on my list. Number 19. This is a guy that could definitely be a lot higher on other people's lists. But I have Freddie Freeman. You know, last year he had a couple stints where he had trouble staying healthy, but he still had 153 hits, 22 homers, 89 RBIs, only 9 stolen bases. He had 23 the year before. I think 23 stolen bases is kind of an outlier for him. He's not a guy that's going to be stealing a lot. 282 average, 59 extra base hits. So last year, you know, as far as average extra base hits, he was on the lower end compared to the year before. The year before he was very dominant though. 211 hits. You know, we know who the Dodgers are. He's going to be in a very potent lineup. You know, so he's going to have the help around him to get chances from pitchers because he's got a lot of people. You know, Mookie and Teoscar Hernandez is still on the Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that. But he is getting older too. He's 35, so he's, you know, for a hitter that's older, so that's why he's a little bit lower on my list. I think you can get fatigued as you get older. It's definitely as a hitter, you're just not as on it. So I still expect him to have a good year for sure. Freddie's going to be Freddie, but just not as high as other people might have him. And then number 20 on my list, which will be my last of this draft board for this video, is Ketel Marte. Ketel Marte had a great year last year. You know, didn't play all the games. He was injured a little bit. He only played 136 games, about 147 hits, 36 homers, still 95 RBIs. You know, 36 homers, 95 RBIs, still really good for missing a decent amount of games. Not really going to get many stolen bases. 65 walks, almost 300 average, 61 extra base hits. He's just going to flat out hit for you. And this is a good one because second base is a relatively shallow position, I think. So he's going to be towards the cream of the crop as far as that position, him and Mookie. So, you know, if you want to get a stud second baseman, fill that position, I think Ketel Marte is going to have another good year. I know that the Diamondbacks lost Christian Walker, but I'm pretty sure they got Josh Naylor. Hopefully Corbin Carroll has a bounce-back year. He's still got a good lineup around him. So he goes through some hot streaks and low streaks, but overall he's a good hitter. And you know, I feel like the stolen bases could maybe go up a little bit, maybe get you at least 10. I mean, that's not going to show up a lot, but it could help you out during the season at different points. So that's my draft board. That's just my top 20. I know this has been a little bit of a long video, but I've wanted to really try to hit all my good points throughout this video as far as what I think is the best way to draft your team, to manage your team during the season, and what the best players are to pick for this year. You know, some guys to have honorable mentions here. Corbin Carroll, I think he can have a bounce back year. Who else we got here? Ronald Acuna, when he's healthy, I expect him to be back to being a stud. It's just he's not going to be ready for the season until probably at least June. So that's a tough guy to figure out where you want to draft him. I mean, obviously, I don't think, you know, you definitely don't pick him in the first or second, I would say. I mean, with how we know Ronald Acuna is, you could still pick him early and stash him. It's just kind of a risk. He's come back from a complete torn ACL, so that's just a hard one to judge. That's just kind of, you know, judge it on how your draft's going as to where you want to pick him. You know, Trey Turner, I like him. He's gonna get you steals. Hit for power for average. Devers, great third baseman. Let's see some other guys here. Manny Machado, I like. Let's see here. C.J. Abrams, I like, another 5-tool player. James Wood, another good player. That is upcoming. That could be a superstar. So keep an eye on these two Washington players for sure. Royce Lewis, if he can stay healthy. O'Neal Cruz. These are all good young guys that can really play well. Adley Rutschman, that's the cream of the crop as far as catchers. Remember, if he gets taken, it's going to get thin after him. I mean, you got William Contreras too up here. But after them two, it's going to get thin, unless I'm missing someone. But Mark Vientos is another guy in that Mets offense that I expect to have another good year. A good young player. Brenton Doyle had a good year last year. Anyways, that is my draft board and the guys to look out for as far as honorable mentions go for the draft this year. Alright guys, thanks for watching. That is all that I have for you today. If I think of any other points that I can make or advice that I can give you guys before the draft, before most of your drafts start, I'm trying to get this video out soon so that it can actually be useful. Just let me know in the comments if you have any other questions as far as what I do for my teams, how I draft, how I pick up players, how I evaluate players. Drop a comment, like if you enjoyed. If you're still here, God bless you, like I always say. I appreciate you. But yeah, please drop a like, subscribe, it helps me out. And drop some comments too. I like getting advice on what to do for videos, or if I can give any more advice to you guys about MLB Fantasy, I'd love to give that out. But anyways, that's all I have for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.